All right. Well, hi, I'm very glad that you're here for my workshop on good on how to move from a basically a blank screen to an A essay. And I'm going to just walk you through the steps. Come on up if you want. Yep. They wanted me to record it just in case people weren't able to come. I'm going to walk through the steps. Now, I have to tell you that what I'm going to teach you here in the next half an hour-ish is something I take the whole semester to teach to students in lots of classes. So what we don't have time to do is really go into detail on all of these elements. But what I would be happy for you to do is take screenshots, take notes, and this will be recorded if you want to be able to watch it again. Good. Okay. All right. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the fact that a professor has assigned to you topic. And with that topic, you might need to narrow it a bit, like World War II was like, okay, what in World War II? So you narrow down that topic till you got the topic you've got. And then you should come up with a research question. That research question is going to drive your finding your sources. This is what I want to know about World War II, sort of thing. And so you've got this research question. You have to find some sources in order to be able to answer the question. So finding those reliable academic sources will be important. You start to gather them. You want to, skim them, take notes on them, be familiar with them. I'm assuming that you'll go through this process quickly right from the beginning, okay? Once you have got some understanding of your sources, the research that you have done, then you're ready to start writing your essay. And this is really where we're at, is we're going to talk more about the actual writing of the essay. Your top priority in writing an essay is, first of all, writing the thesis statement. That's a statement, not a question. It's a statement that is not personal. There's no I, me, or my in it. It's just a statement. You can see here with this statement that you're to include your topic, opinion, and parts. If you think of it from that perspective, from your top priority, then the topic that you've got, your stance on the topic with the word choice that you've got, and then parts. What elements are you going to focus on regarding this? It's to be one sentence and the last sentence of the introduction. It is your thesis that organizes the essay. So I'm going to help you see how that happens here with a couple of examples. Let's give this example here. Let's say your topic is North Carolina trees, okay? And you decide that you're going to narrow it to pollinators. You can see how that word important gives that opinion. We understand what perspective you're trying to portray, what the rhetoric is of that topic. So what are we going to look at? We're going to look at 3 different trees. We're going to look at the black cherry, the Carolina silverbell, and the Chickasaw plum. So those become the parts or the elements that we have. So take a look at the thesis statement, and I want you to see how this breakdown of the TOP goes into one sentence. You've got the black cherry, Carolina silverbell, and Chickasaw plum are the 3 important pollinator trees that are native to North Carolina. That's your statement that's going to organize it. When professors go to your essay, they're going to look for that sentence that's going to organize your whole paper in the last sentence of the intro. Does that make sense? Good. All right. Now, once you've got that thesis statement in place, gosh, I just jumped way down. Let's go up. All right. So what I want to show you here is that I came up with those 3 trees from this source. So back in that slide where I talked to you about coming up with a research question and then finding some sources, I asked a research question, about trees in North Carolina. And then I found the source, and this source was incredibly helpful to me. So it is helpful to sometimes do the actual citation. And when you do the citation, I'm not going to spend much time on citations, but one thing it's important for you to know, if you have the author's last name, that you put that first. This source didn't have an author's last name. You don't have that, then you use the title, and that goes in quotation marks, and there's that title right there. If for some reason you don't have the title, then you have the name of the website that goes first, okay? So learning how to do MLA or APA citations will be important to you. Just understanding the priority of what you use to begin your citation with is here. So that was the source that I used that I was able to gain some information from. And it helped me write my thesis statement because when I went on that site, I saw these trees and I went, oh, I can write about that one. Oh, that one would be good. So that's why that source is important or helpful. Now, once you have your thesis statement written, the next thing you're going to want to do is start writing your topic sentences. So let me give you an example of a topic sentence, okay? First of all, let me explain. The parts of your thesis statement become the focus for each section in your essay. So you'll notice from the thesis statement I had earlier, okay, that I have three parts. One section will be on the black cherry, next will be on the Carolina silver bell, and last will be on the Chickasaw plum. This is how your thesis organizes your paper. I look at it and go, okay, I know what to expect in the first part, what will be in the middle of my essay, and what will be at the last. So your parts keep the same order. And you do it through the use of your topic sentences. The parts of your thesis become the focus for each section. Let's look at an example of a topic sentence here. I've labeled it TS1. Okay. The black cherry tree is a valuable pollinator in the state of North Carolina. That would be one of the, I would begin one of my paragraphs in that section with this sentence. And what you need to know about topic sentences is it lets us know what the paragraph is about. So I know from this first sentence of the paragraph that I'm going to be talking about the black cherry and how it is valuable as a pollinator, okay? A topic sentence, that's why I've used TS right here, contains the topic and focus. I want you to see how the topic is still there. Pollinators of North Carolina, to see, okay? And we've got focus on the black cherry. So the first thing you do when you're writing is that top priority of the thesis. Then you go in and you write your topic sentences. I want you to show you how doing that can help you create an outline. So it's like, how am I going to organize this essay? Where am I going? So watch with my thesis with the black cherry, Carolina silver bell, and Chickasaw plum. Okay, there's my thesis statement. Watch how I've got it: black cherry, then Carolina silver bell, and then Chickasaw plum. So I've got a topic sentence, another topic sentence, another topic sentence. I want you to also notice how I have changed some order for creating. For good writing, you want to create interest for the reader. I want you to notice I've got part here, and the part there, and then the part back here. See how I kind of change it up a bit? I want you to also notice how I've changed the topic. I've got pollinator in North Carolina, then I've pollinator in the mid-eastern states, and then I've got North Carolina and pollinator, okay? So I've changed it up a bit, and that's good writing. You want to be able to have some interest rather than feeling like you're just reading the same thing over again with topic sentences. So if we're going to create an outline, we'll come back to the introduction. You have the thesis at the end of the introduction. Here's our body of our paper, and then we've got conclusion. I want you to see that I put bullet points under the topic sentences. It can be helpful when if you're asked to create an outline, or if you want to create an outline, just put some words or phrases that you'll think, okay, I want to talk about this, about the black cherry, this about the black cherry, that sort of thing, okay? So here an outline can be very helpful for you, just kind of going, this is how I'm going to start to organize my essay. Now, let me just tell you that this body here with each paragraph, you support your topic sentences. I'm going to talk to you right now about these bullets, how to be able to make them into a paragraph, okay? So we're right here with the body and talking about the paragraph. You support your topic sentences with a blending of the following three things: facts, reasons, and examples. So it could be that you'll give one reason why it's a pollinator. You'll give a couple facts of maybe how many trees in North Carolina have been pollinated by the black cherry, you know, when that pollination happens. You might give an example of in your hometown, you know, you can blend it. It could be you just are thinking 3 reasons. That's what I'm going to go for. Or you might say, I'm going to give a reason, an example, and then another reason. So think facts, reasons, and examples for supporting that topic sentence. For research papers, you'll include sourced information in your supportive topic sentence. If you happen to be writing, a personal narrative or something, you don't need sourced information, but most university papers required sourced information. So remember that citation I showed you about trees back at the beginning? Sure. Yep, that source, I would go in there and I would look for information. You can put some of it as paraphrased, some of it summarized, and some could be direct quotes where you take a phrase and you copy it word for word and include it. But you make sure that you support that topic sentence with its facts, reasons, and examples. Okay. All right. I'm going to pause right there for a second because I'm going fast. Any questions, or is it okay? Yep. Okay. All right. So we've got this body that's been built. Let's now go back to that introduction. Remember when on the outline I said we'll do the thesis statements, we'll do the topic sentences, then we'll build out the body. So the question you want to ask yourself is, how can I engage the reader so they want to read this essay, whether it's your professor or somebody else? What could be engaging to them? I've got a couple of suggestions here. When I teach this, I like to do it with like the TOP. I like to have some things that help students to remember it. So I want you to think about the first two letters of the alphabet, okay? An anecdote is a short little story, like a couple of sentences, has beginning, middle, and end, okay? A background information, it helps to clarify the thesis statement. So it could be that you would want, and you can combine, by the way. So it could be that you could tell a short story about, children in elementary school are often introduced to different types of trees, but they never value the trees, in their own state. This was true for my siblings and myself, who, until I became an adult, never learned about the North Carolina trees. So you've got a little bit of a story there, a little bit of human interest, okay? Then background information would be maybe the difference between pollinators and non-pollinators, or where North Carolina is located. You give some background information that goes, okay, I needed to read all this so that when I got to the thesis, I'm understanding why it's an important topic. The next thing you can do is ask a question. And that needs to be, by the way, a rhetorical question. So that means a question that makes the reader stop and think and then want to do something like read on, or, it's basically for action or reaction. So, a rhetorical question would be, what would be the impact in North Carolina if all pollinator trees were removed? I don't know. It makes me stop and think. Would there be an impact? And how would it affect me? Right? So it makes me stop and think, and then it makes me want to read on. A quote, I want you to notice the first two letters of the alphabet. Now we're doing two cues. The quote would be a direct, word for word, bit of information that came from source material. So let's say in that article that I found that I showed you earlier, I was reading through and there was a phrase that I thought, oh, that is so good. I want to use that in my introduction. Okay. So you need to make sure you cite it correctly, but a quote, a direct quote, can be very useful as engaging. Okay. And it gives you what's called ethos. It gives you credibility. And then the last are facts and figures. And facts and figures are very ethos driven. A reader sees facts and figures and they go, okay, they've done their research. They know what they're talking about. I'd like to read on. And, for example, in 1978, the first black cherry tree was planted in North Carolina. Okay, there's a 1978, you've got that, that fact or figure that has some clear evidence that you've done your reading and your research. So what you want to do when you get your introduction is ask what combination of these things would be helpful to me so that I could engage. And I would suggest do a combination. You want a good paragraph, a good introduction. You want to aim 5 to 7 sentences. How are you going to build that out? Are you going to ask a question, give some background information, throw in a quote, and then move into your thesis statement? What are you going to do with the blending of information? And That good introduction engages the reader, and of course, the last sentence of the introduction is a thesis statement. Okay. Now, once that's written, you've got a sense of how your essay's flowing, and you're ready to go down to your conclusion, that last paragraph. There's some principles regarding a conclusion that you need to know. The first is somewhere in your conclusion, you need to have a reworded thesis statement. It shouldn't read exactly like your thesis. It needs to be reworded. Now, what I do, and oops, I forgot a bracket there, parentheses. Let me see if I can add it in right now. There we go. So what I like to do for my students is I like to teach them how to do this in an expanded way. Like your first sentence is the topic, and then your next couple sentences summarize your parts. Part 1, part 2, part 3. That's a reworded, really expanded thesis that does the summary that is required. And it also means no new information. I've just summarized what's there. So if you do an expanded thesis, then you make sure there's no new information, you make sure you summarize, and of course you've got your worded thesis there. So topic, part, then your last sentence, depending on what you want to do with this, you can just tie it all in a bow and give a nice summary statement. I tend to encourage my students to do a call to action. That call to action is, hey, now that you've read this, here's what's important for you to do with this information. You know, like a call to action for this essay could be, there are a number of pollinators in North Carolina that are valuable to the state. Get to know them and value them for their pollinating ability. So what was the call? Get to know them and value them. There's that call. Do you see how that becomes more directive? It's rhetorical. So there we've got it. We started with our thesis statement, then we did our topic sentences, we built out our body, we went up to our introduction and decided how could it be engaging, and we made sure our conclusion was a nice summary with an expanded thesis statement. But we don't end there, because we want to make sure our essay's MLA format, right? So you want to make sure, or APA, make sure you know which format the professor's asking for. Your name, my name, class, date is how you begin it. You got the title, you see it's double spaced, you see you indent. This kind of format is very similar. It's the same between APA and MLA. But with APA, you have a title page and you have different ways in which, different words that are used, different ways in which you cite and include a header. This being the header up here. So make sure you know the format, and that can be easily found from in a number of different ways. And then once you know you've got it MLA formatted, you've proofread, you feel like I've got a good essay, then I encourage my students to do one last thing, to use the tools that are available to you to make sure it's a great essay, not just a good essay. And one is Grammarly. ECSU offers Grammarly. You can sign in using your ECSU email. You've got it? Okay, great. So using that Grammarly, the advanced Grammarly you can get through ECSU is great because it catches the errors and it doesn't limit them. It shows you all the things you need to fix. Okay. Another resource that I really recommend students getting to know is Purdue OWL. That's an online writing lab. That OWL stands for Online Writing Lab. Purdue is just the standard in formatting, and you can go in and it will show you exactly how to format books and articles and magazines, newspapers, personal interviews. You get to see all of that in either APA or MLA or whatever format you're using. The last thing I do is I do have my students use ChatGPT to fix the grammar and punctuation errors. You can ask it to fix MLA and APA. What I have discovered is it's still not smart enough to fix everything and get it all right. AI's getting smarter, but it's still not there. You need to be able to critically look. For example, ChatGPT loves to put dashes in. I've got students who it's dash here, dash there. Well, dashes they shouldn't be used that way. And the other thing with I've seen for some students is that as soon as you say fix the MLA format, it moves everything over to the left-hand side and takes out all the indenting and everything. But that's not MLA format. So it does it to some and not others, as I've got everybody sitting together. So you need to have a critical eye. It will help you, but it also could mess it up. So, this is not the final word. It's not, an authority on everything. But if you say, find and fix the comma errors, or make sure my subject verb agreements are good, or find, awkward wording and make it sound more academic, you can ask it to do some specifics, but you weigh out, is that helpful or has that just made it sound like somebody else? An important thing I need to just add right here at the very end is, don't let AI do the writing for you. It changes your voice. And professors will know that. I absolutely know when a student submits something that's been written by AI, because I know how they talk. I know how they've written because of writing they've done in the class. And all of a sudden I've got this essay. And last semester I had 3 students submit work, and I told all 3 of them it's 0 because it's written by AI. 2 of them took the 0. 1 came back and said, no, seriously, I wrote it myself. And my question to her was, then why is your first sentence the same as 2 other students? AI is not that creative, So it's going to use stuff that it's already used for somebody else. And as I read through, I'm going, yeah, I've already read 2 papers like this, right? Yeah. So make sure you do your own work. Just let it correct and proofread for you. That's a good advice. So my hope is that having gone through this gives you some ideas on how to just approach.
Sometimes when I'm writing, I can get all over the place. So the topic sentence, and then for the second paragraph, the third paragraph, that's really helpful because it helps me organize everything that I'm saying instead of kind of throwing something right there and using something that should be in the first paragraph and the third paragraph.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, that you write a good thesis statement and good topic sentences, you will be on your way to a good paper. Yeah, good. All right.
First, I think like the first slide,
Uh-huh.
maybe the second up top. What do you do if you can't determine your research question? How do you brainstorm for a research question?
Okay, that's a great question. So you've got this, determine your research question. How do you come up with one? Well, for example, the topic that was given or assigned was North Carolina trees. And I thought, well, what do I want to learn about them? I could learn about, photosynthesis. Maybe I'm interested in that. What else? What am I interested in? How tall they grow or how long they live? Maybe. Where do they grow best? Kind of. Pollination. Actually, I don't even do trees pollinate? I don't even know. I think that's what I want to ask. Do you see how you can think about a topic and consider it and then going, yeah, what are the pollinator trees in North Carolina? Yeah, I think that's my question. And by the way, that question can become, if you remember for the introduction when we were looking at that, different strategies, you've got this question that your research question can be that question. Many are curious to know, or have you ever considered, or it is important to ask, what are the pollinator? You can ask that rhetorical question. Your research question can become that rhetorical question and go into your introduction. And then when you get to the very end in your conclusion, when you're doing this expanded thesis, when you're doing either the summary statement or call to action, you can reference the answer to your research question. Yeah, so it begins with that question and then you end kind of with the answer. Yeah, good. Well, you're welcome. I'm very glad you joined me.
Me too. I learned a lot.
Good. All right. Well, I'm going to stop recording here and I'll be with you in just a second.
One